Hi, I'm John Benet. My half-sister used to laugh behind closed doors, telling people I'd fade away like some failed dream no one ever missed. She called me the family embarrassment, the girl with too many feelings and not enough worth. And for a while, I believed her, until July 4th, until my name rose above Main Street on a banner she couldn't tear down, in front of a town that finally looked and saw me. But what did it cost to get there? And why did her smile vanish the moment mine arrived? I didn't cry that night, not because it didn't hurt, but because I knew they didn't deserve to see it. The call came on a Tuesday. I was wiping down the counter of my one-bedroom apartment in Nashville, humming along to an old Sam Cooke song. The ringtone sliced through the quiet Megan's name, glowing on the screen. I stared at it for a moment too long. When I finally answered, her voice was flat. Dad passed this morning. The funeral's Saturday. Thought you should know. That was it. No pause. No softening. Not even a "how are you?" I gripped the edge of the sink as she hung up. The sun outside was blinding, but everything inside me dimmed. My knees didn't buckle. My breath didn't hitch. I just stood there, staring out at the birds fighting over breadcrumbs on the sidewalk, remembering the way Dad used to point them out from the porch like they were old friends. I thought I'd be ready for this moment. But grief doesn't come the way you expect. It sneaks in sideways, through memory. The drive back to Franklin felt longer than it should have. 6 years away. And suddenly the road was unfamiliar, like my car wasn't sure if it should be heading that way again. The minute I turned onto our old street, I felt it like the town itself took a breath and held it. The house hadn't changed much. White siding, black shutters. Megan's red Mazda sat in the driveway like it owned the place. I parked behind it, heart hammering like I was a trespasser on someone else's property. Inside, the hall was lined with photos. Megan at prom, Megan's graduation, Megan holding Dad's hand on the porch. My face, not even a flicker. I paused at the end of the hallway, where the biggest frame sat over the fireplace. A family photo taken the year before I left. Only, it had been cropped. My face was gone. A neighbor passed by the porch as I stood outside, suitcase in hand. She glanced up and blinked. "Didn't know you'd come," she said. Neither did I. Saturday came thick with humidity and bad memories. The church was already buzzing when I arrived. Everyone in black, speaking in soft tones. I hadn't been seated 10 minutes before Megan swept up beside me in her sleek navy dress. "Hey," she whispered, not looking at me, "just so you know. I'll be reading the eulogy. Dad and I worked on it before everything." I frowned. I wrote something. Her eyes flicked to me. "This isn't the time for drama. John Bennett." Then she walked off. I should have said something, but the moment slipped by like a greased rope. And I sat there, fists clenched in my lap as the service began. When she took the podium, she smiled that polished pageant smile she always wore when cameras were near. Her voice was syrupy, warm for them. She talked about being Daddy's little girl, about their morning coffee rituals, about how he always believed in her. My name didn't pass her lips once. By the end, people were dabbing their eyes. I sat motionless. I wasn't sad. I was invisible. At the reception, things got worse. They handed out memorial programs glossy, trifolded, smelling like ink. I opened mine. There it was. Survived by his loving daughter, Megan Louise. No mention of me. I stood in line at the punch table, half dizzy, trying to steady myself with small talk from strangers. A woman with big sunglasses leaned in. "You're Megan's cousin, right?" "From New York." I blinked. "I'm her sister." She laughed. "Oh, really? That's funny. Never heard about you." I smiled, tight-lipped. Most people haven't. Later that evening, back at the house, I found Mom in the kitchen. She was rinsing dishes, like there hadn't been a funeral at all. "I need to talk," I said quietly. She didn't turn around. "Let's not make this about you. John Benet." I blinked, stunned. "I'm not trying to." Megan walked in, cutting me off. "You made your choices," she said. "You walked away. Don't try to rewrite your role now." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just turned and stepped outside. The sun was sinking behind the trees, painting everything in gold. Out back, the rosebush Dad planted the year I was born was still blooming. I knelt beside it, fingers brushing petals I hadn't seen in years. It didn't matter how far I'd come. what I'd survived, what I'd built, because in their eyes, I had no place. Not in the pews, not in the program, not in the story. But I saw myself, and one day, they would too. I didn't cry that night, not because it didn't hurt, but because I knew they didn't deserve to see it. But if I'd learned anything from Sable, it was that silence never meant surrender. It just meant she was setting the stage. 2 years ago, they held the annual Community Awards Night at the old county banquet hall, the one with flickering sconces and crooked ceiling fans that clicked louder than applause. Lacey helped me zip up a navy dress I bought off a clearance rack the month before. I wore flats because heels and shame don't mix well. We arrived early. Too early. I wasn't sure what the process was for unlisted nominees. That's what the email said, nominated by community members, not announced until evening. I even printed it, tucked it neatly into my purse like proof I wasn't imagining things again. The room smelled like reheated chicken and perfume. Red, white, blue ribbons curled across tables, and the chairs were arranged in tidy rows facing a low stage wrapped in bunting. Lacey clutched my hand tightly. Her curls bounced with every step. No one greeted us when we walked in, not the volunteers, not the folks I knew from the diner, not even the church ladies I once helped pack food boxes with. But Sable was there, in a blood-red gown that shimmered every time she moved. Surrounded by cameras and county officials, she looked like the second coming of Miss Alabama. She saw me, and then looked right through me. Eventually, a girl with a clipboard called out names and handed out seat cards. I waited. She didn't call mine. I raised my hand slightly awkward. Hesitant, she leaned in. You're... Oh, right. Ms. Shipley. You're over there. She pointed past the second row, past the camera crew, past even the stage stairs toward a lone chair half hidden behind a potted fern. I took my seat. Lacey sat beside me, legs swinging, unaware. Then came the speeches. The mayor, the head librarian, the fire chief, all singing praises, all recognizing real dedication. And when it was time for volunteer honors, Sable stepped up to the mic. I want to thank the true leaders of our town, the ones who stand tall, inspire us, and remind us what resilience looks like. The spotlight found her smile. She didn't say my name. Not once. Raylan had called earlier that week from a hospital bed in El Paso something about his blood pressure. He wanted to come, but couldn't fly. Mom was there, 2 rows back, seated neatly beside Councilman Rourke. She didn't look my way. I sat still. My name was never printed in the program. There was no slide, no mention, no applause. But my daughter clapped anyway, loud and proud. For everyone. For me, too, because she didn't know any better. Not yet. After the crowd thinned and people shuffled off for cupcakes and cheap wine, I stood near the back exit waiting for Lacey to finish her juice box. A woman I didn't recognize, a custodian maybe, or kitchen crew walked past and quietly slipped a folded note into my palm. No eye contact. Just kept walking. I opened it under the hallway light. You should have been on that stage. We know. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. We got into the car. I made a peanut butter sandwich for Lacey at home, then put her to bed with an extra blanket. And I stayed up until 3 a.m. I pulled out every grant application I ever filed, every denial, every unfortunately letter. I opened old Word docs, scanned flyers from my literacy sessions, saved voicemails from grateful families. I sorted everything into folders, dates, locations, witnesses, not to get even, just to not be erased. The next morning, Facebook lit up with photos of Sable and the other leaders. Local news outlets reposted them. There I was in the background of 2. One photo had me mid-laugh with Lacey. It got cropped. Only Sable remained in the repost, erased. Again. But that night planted something in me. I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. I couldn't unknow how intentional the silence had become. And I couldn't unknow that someone in that building still believed I mattered. So I logged out, closed the app, opened a new folder on my desktop. Project Dawn, every file, every photo, every forgotten name I renamed. Time-stamped, backed up. If they wanted me silent, they shouldn't have given me a seat close enough to see what really went on backstage. But sometimes the truth doesn't wait for your grace. It drops on your doorstep, unsigned and full of venom. I was the last car in the church parking lot that night. Even the pastor's sedan had pulled out 10 minutes earlier. I took my time walking toward my car, mostly because I didn't want to return to that house. Not yet. The air was thick with late summer humidity, fireflies blinking like static across the edge of the lot. When I reached my car, something white fluttered beneath the windshield wiper. At first, I thought it was a flyer, maybe an event or a condolence note from someone who missed the reception. But when I pulled it free, I noticed the weight, heavier than a single sheet of paper. No name, no return address, just a folded printout tucked into a blank envelope. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, dome light casting just enough glow to read the first line. To whom it may concern, it's come to our attention that Ms. JonBenet Ashcroft may not be the original creator of the pieces exhibited under her name at Ellsworth & Co. My stomach dropped. The rest of the letter went on to accuse me of stealing concepts, plagiarizing sketches, and misrepresenting my education. It mentioned Baton Rouge. It mentioned the show that was supposed to open next month. It mentioned me by full name, but whoever wrote it didn't sign it. I read it twice, 3 times. Certain words caught in my chest. Misleading identity. No verifiable record. Unconfirmed credentials. I'd heard those phrases before months ago, in texts, from Megan. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in that guest room, the ceiling above me still littered with glow-in-the-dark stars, now barely visible with age. They used to shine like constellations when I was little. I used to trace them with my finger and pretend they were real. Now they were just stickers, just faint ghosts. I got up and pulled my suitcase onto the bed, unzipped the inner flap, pulled out an old sketch pad I hadn't looked at in years. I flipped through it, slowly portraits of my dad's hands holding a wrench, a pencil drawing of our dog Max curled by the fire, a maple tree in October wind. I ran my fingers over the graphite, still smudged. Still mine. If she wants to erase me, I whispered into the empty room, she'll have to do more than hide a program or send a letter. When the sky turned pale and the house fell into that eerie silence before coffee and complaints, I went downstairs and sat at the kitchen table. Megan's voice echoed from the upstairs hallway, something about brunch, something about catering, something about herself. I didn't wait to be seen. I stepped outside and drove to the gas station 3 blocks down, parked behind it, and called Ellsworth & Co. Reception answered. I need to speak with Devon, I said, keeping my voice flat. Ms. Ashcroft. Yes. One moment. The line clicked, soft jazz filling the void for 30 seconds. Then, JonBenet, Devon said, cautious. I need to ask you something, I said, and I'd appreciate honesty. He sighed. It was about a month ago. We got a letter, and it said your background was fabricated, that your degree didn't exist, that your earliest work matched archived pieces from an abandoned portfolio site. Did you believe it? No, he answered too quickly. But the board did, or enough of them did that we couldn't move forward without a full vetting, and we didn't want to embarrass you. I breathed slowly through my nose. So you canceled my show to protect me, to protect the gallery. I closed my eyes. I'll send something in writing. I'm sorry, Devon said, and it sounded like he meant it. But meaning only stretches so far when fear's already made the decisions. After the call, I didn't cry. I sat there in the driver's seat of my car behind a gas station in a town I never wanted to return to, holding a phone that had just confirmed what I already knew. It wasn't the lie that hurt. It was how easily it fit into the version of me they already believed. But even a lie, when said often enough, begins to rot everything around it, including the people who spread it. I hadn't planned to be seen. I just wanted a coffee, something bitter and hot and normal. But the moment I stepped through the door of the Franklin Cafe, I could feel it, every head tilted. Every spoon paused midair, the kind of hush that tells you someone's name just got dropped like a stone in a still pond. That's her, someone whispered, not quietly enough. I kept my eyes ahead and headed for the corner booth near the window. Same spot I'd sat in with my dad when I was 15, back when the biggest worry was whether the Titans would make playoffs. The waitress Evelyn, who used to sneak me extra whipped cream, offered a nervous smile but didn't say my name. Just, menu's the same. On the wall above the counter was a new poster, neatly framed. Glossy. It stopped me cold. Honoring the Megan Memorial Fund for the Arts, a legacy of creative excellence. In the center was a rebranded logo, the exact one I'd used on my high school senior project. The same title, same font. My name gone, Megan's plastered over it like a headline. She hadn't just erased me. She was repurposing me, The door chimed. I didn't need to look up. Her voice always preceded her. Warm. Performative. Loud enough for tables to hear. Well, look who's back in town. Megan chirped as if she were hosting a charity ball. You're glowing. Grief suits you. She breezed past the counter, arms full of folders and sunglasses perched like a crown. I thought I'd grab a quick bite before my meeting about the fund. You know how much Dad loved art. I stood up. Megan. Can we talk? Outside. Her eyes flicked. Calculating. Then the smile returned. Of course. We stepped out onto the sidewalk, heat rising off the pavement, cicadas buzzing like warning sirens. I kept my voice low. You sent the letter to the gallery. She blinked, then actually laughed. What letter? The one accusing me of plagiarism. The one that used your favorite phrase's misleading identity. No public record? She tilted her head. If I had sent it, you'd never find out. You're not exactly FBI material. I stared at her. You're standing on my name. And I will take it back. Megan's smile thinned. What name? That landed like a slap. She leaned in, her breath sickly sweet. Let it go. John, you were always more potential than actual talent. Don't embarrass yourself. She turned and glided back inside like nothing had happened. I sat in my truck for a long time after that. Air conditioner blasting, hands shaking not from fear, from the effort it took not to walk back in and burn every lie down with truth. I thought about the time I was 9, and Megan cornered me in the attic, holding my favorite sketchbook over the open window. You'll always be my shadow, she said, so you better get used to being behind. No one tells you revenge is mostly silence. That night, back at the house, I sat at the kitchen counter and opened my laptop. I drafted an email to the gallery, attached the photo I'd taken of the cafe's poster, explained how the project she was using had originated under my name, complete with archived blog links and time-stamped files. Then I stared at the send button. I didn't click it. Not yet. Instead, I saved the file, labeled it Proof 01, and moved it to a folder called Ashcroft. Let her keep smiling. I haven't shown her what I've really built. Some warnings aren't screamed. They're carved quietly into the path of whoever thought they'd never be caught. But even the quietest lines once crossed have a way of echoing through everything that comes next. I didn't mean to end up at the park that afternoon. I told myself I was just out for air, trying to clear the static from my chest. But my feet knew where to go before I did. The old oak by the swing set was still there, bark thick and peeling like it always had been. Dad used to lean against it, arms crossed, while I kicked gravel with untied sneakers. He never told me to stop drawing in the dirt with a stick. He just watched. And there, sitting on the same rusted bench near the sandbox, was Aunt Luann, white brim hut, iced tea from her thermos, looking up like she'd been expecting me since noon. You always come back here when you're figuring something out, she said, patting the spot beside her. I sat. We didn't speak for a bit. The clink of her ice cubes filled the silence. Then she said, she's pushing for the parade to be renamed. The scholarship, too. The one you and your dad started. My stomach didn't drop. It's solidified. He hasn't even been in the ground a week, I said. Luann gave a slow nod. Megan says it's honoring him, but she's removing your name as co-founder. Claims you never signed the original documents. If she does, I'll make sure her name comes off more than a plaque. She didn't ask me to explain. She didn't have to. Back at the house, I moved with purpose. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table, ignoring the smell of lemon cleaner Megan used every time she wanted the house to feel company ready. I pulled up a folder I hadn't opened in years. Parade proposals, grant approvals, my father's handwritten notes, all the receipts she thought were long gone. I began drafting a letter to the parade committee. Calm, precise, undeniable. I didn't send it. Instead, I saved it with a name she wouldn't miss if she ever saw the screen. Final notice or Megan, PDF. Then I pulled up my phone and posted a photo of the original parade logo drawn in pen, scribbled by my teenage hand, with my father's initials tucked at the bottom. No caption, just truth. By the time the sky had started dimming, I was outside in the backyard, watering the rose bushes that had somehow survived Megan's heavy pruning. The hose jerked in my hand when I heard gravel crunch behind me. Megan. She wasn't wearing makeup. That alone told me she wasn't here to perform. You need to stop, she snapped. I turned the water off. Stop what? The online post. The emails. Making everything harder than it already is. You're not the only one who lost him. Then maybe act like it. She looked around like she wasn't sure if we were alone. You're making yourself look desperate. Victimhood isn't a strategy. I took a step forward, calm. I haven't even started. But if you touch one more thing I built, I won't just speak. I'll prove. Her eyes flared. You always loved playing the martyr. No, I learned it from watching you get away with it. She walked away then. No slamming of the gate. No parting shot. Just quiet. Later that night, I lit the fire pit out back. The crickets had started. A breeze rustled the hedges. In my lap sat a folder of old drawings. One of them, a pencil sketch of a girl under the oak tree, had Megan's words scrawled in red ink across the back. You'll never show this to anyone. It's pathetic. I folded it once, then again, and fed it to the flames. Smoke curled upward. The edges browned, curled, and I smiled. Not with joy, with readiness. She could keep the headlines, the titles, the fake praise. But she would never take the first lines I drew. The trouble with being heard is, some people don't want to listen, they want to silence you louder. That morning started like any other since I got back to Franklin, a burnt piece of toast. The low hum of the neighbor's mower, the smell of damp soil from last night's storm. But everything shifted the moment I opened the mailbox. Inside was a cream envelope with the town seal pressed into its flap. Formal. Cold. I tore it open on the porch. My eyes landed on the words. Suspension of name from public parade materials. The reason, a pending character complaint filed by an unnamed party. Unnamed. But I didn't need a signature to know whose fingerprints stained it. By noon, I stood in the foyer of the town hall, facing a wall of posters. New designs for the parade. Megan's name stretched across every print, ribboned in gold cursive. Mine. Gone. Not a single trace. A young intern walked past and offered a polite nod. I leaned in, my voice low. You can't scrub the one who built the damn wall. He blinked, unsure if I meant it literally. I didn't clarify. Hours later, I showed up at the church hall with a warm pie and a colder smile. It was the charity bake sale, an annual event. Harmless enough in theory, but as I stepped through the double doors, I felt it. The shift. Conversations paused mid-sentence. A few smiles froze before ever forming. One woman I'd known since middle school, Pam Green, looked through me like she was trying to decide if I was still real or just something she had imagined. I placed the pie gently on the table between the lemon bars and the store-bought brownies. Didn't say a word. Then I heard it just loud enough. She's always been jealous of Megan. Guess now she's gone too far. I smiled, slow, tilted my head toward them, nodded once, and walked out. Let them choke on the crumbs. That night, I sat on my porch steps with a glass of lemonade when I saw headlights. I didn't need to look up. The rhythm of those tires on gravel, the confident slam of the car door. Megan. She didn't knock, just stormed up the steps and tossed something at my feet. A flash drive. Try uploading that interview now, she hissed. You'll regret it. I didn't even blink. I already regret sharing a roof with you for 18 years. She crossed her arms. You're turning Dad's name into a circus. I rose slowly. No, you're just mad. You're not the ringmaster. Her jaw tightened. I thought she might slap me. Instead, she turned. You always did like playing the martyr, she muttered. No, I said quietly. I learned it from watching you get away with it. She walked away. But I knew she heard that one. Later that night, I sat at my desk with my laptop open and a photo of Dad, arms around both of us girls framed to the side. I opened my video folder and pulled up the clip. Dad on stage at the 4th of July parade, giving one of his long-winded speeches. I was 14, clutching his cue cards, standing in the sun, awkward and beaming. I posted it. No caption, just the video. Then I changed my mind. I typed beneath it. Some people inherit names. Others carry legacies. Within minutes, the likes began to trickle in. Then comments. I remember that day. Your dad was so proud. Didn't know you helped organize the first parade. That's incredible. We miss your voice. John Bennett. I didn't cry. I didn't comment back. It wasn't a war post. It was a flag in the ground. I didn't burn anything down. But if she wanted a battlefield, I had finally chosen mine. And now, standing at the edge of that battlefield, I realized I wasn't the only one wounded by her war. The air inside Franklin High's auditorium felt denser than I remembered. like it held all the unsaid things from every girl who'd ever been told to hush. Sit straight. Smile pretty. I stood backstage, behind a curtain that smelled faintly of old wood and auditorium dust, holding a banner that had belonged to my father. My grip on it was tight, not because I was afraid, but because I was ready. That morning, an email had landed in my inbox, an anonymous forward from someone on the town council. I read it twice, then a third time. Even though my eyes had stopped blinking, concerned citizens, they called themselves. They'd written to the July 4th parade sponsors, calling me unstable, emotionally erratic, and not fit to represent the town. The last line cut deepest. We suggest replacing her with a more relatable figure, a lifestyle blogger. Perhaps a name was redacted, but I didn't need it. Megan's fingerprints were all over that note, polished, composed, smiling even while she carved. One board member sent me a private message with 6 words. They tried to replace you. Quietly, I didn't reply. I just went and found the banner. It was stored in my father's cedar trunk, still smelling like tobacco and rain. I carried it to the auditorium myself. Didn't ask for help. Didn't offer an explanation. By the time I arrived, the forum had already filled up familiar faces in the crowd, half of them pretending not to recognize me, the other half pretending I didn't belong. I stepped onto the stage like I'd been doing it my whole life, like I wasn't shaking underneath. No speech in hand. No microphone rehearsal. Just my story waiting to be told. I didn't name Megan. I didn't have to. Instead, I looked straight into the crowd and said, "They said I'm not fit to carry a banner. I ask you, who do you think held it up when no one else believed?" A murmur rippled through the rows. I've heard a lot of whispers these past weeks. I've read the emails. But the truth is, I was raised in a house where daughters were decorations, not voices. And I carried that silence like a family heirloom. But not anymore. A pause. Not for drama, just breath. There are girls in this town who were never allowed to shine. Not because they couldn't, but because they weren't the favorite. Because their pain wasn't palatable. Because they didn't smile the right way. Well, we're done being palatable. Someone in the back clapped. Another joined. It grew not into a standing ovation, but into something steadier. A hum of recognition. A shared ache. That evening, a local radio station clipped 30 seconds of my speech. By morning, it was on 3 dozen Facebook timelines and climbing. Then came the twist. A video surfaced. An old one, grainy, filmed in 2009. In it, Megan's laugh cut through the static. She thinks she's getting that scholarship. Please. She won't make it out of this town. She was 17, blonde, brazen, holding a soda can like a microphone. A few voices in the background egged her on. But the cruelty was all hers. It spread fast, faster than my speech. A neighbor, Mr. Howard, the retired librarian, posted a comment that got hundreds of shares. "We've known which sister carried Grace all along. We just didn't say it." I didn't comment. Didn't press like. Instead, I posted a photo, the banner, folded, resting in my arms. No caption. No fire. Just embers. By nightfall, the air had shifted, not fully, but enough to breathe. In our small town, truth doesn't scream. It leaks, slowly, surely, until there's no denying it. Megan went quiet online. Her curated life paused, mid-filter. And me, I sat in my kitchen, the banner still beside me, the house still too quiet. But this time, the silence wasn't empty. It was mine. And just like that, the whispers changed direction. But I knew tomorrow would speak louder than them all. 2 days later, the air outside the church fellowship hall felt thick enough to cut. Vera had arranged what she called a private family remembrance, something quieter, more intimate than the memorial before. She didn't send me an invitation, but I came anyway. I wore gray, not black, not mourning. I wasn't grieving anymore, not the way they wanted me to. Whispers trailed behind me as I stepped inside. Some folks stiffened when they saw me. A few glanced toward Vera like children looking for their teacher's reaction. Clark stood at the entrance, and when our eyes met, he gave a small nod. No words, just presence. Vera stood near the podium with a bouquet of lilies in one hand, her other clutching a pearl-edged folder, like it held holy scripture. She smiled when she saw me tight and brittle. No one stopped me, but everyone watched. She began her speech with syrupy grace. "Today, we honor a mother who lived with dignity, and loved fiercely. Then she launched into the curated memories, ones I knew had been carefully edited, rehearsed. I waited until her voice hit a high note about legacy. Then I moved. I walked, slow and steady, to the AV table near the back. I didn't say anything at first, just exchanged a glance with the volunteer running the setup and showed him the flash drive. He looked from me to Vera, hesitated. I whispered, "Play it, please." He did. The lights dimmed. At first, there was only grainy footage. Then, voices. Vera's voice sharp, unmistakable. "You don't need to remember her. She left you, like always." Then, the sound of paper tearing. Footage of her yanking letters from a box and feeding them into the fireplace. A pause. Then, a quiet, trembling voice. "Our mother. I miss my Rowena. She was always my quieter heart." Gasps scattered across the room. Someone dropped a glass. It didn't break, but the sound felt like thunder. When the lights came back on, Vera looked pale. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then snapped. "That's manipulation. You edited it?" "No," I said, stepping forward, my voice calm. "That was you, raw and uncut." She tried to pivot. "You're just hungry for attention. Always have been. That's why you left school, why you stayed away." I looked past her. I didn't come here for revenge. I turned to the others. I came because this was the last place she said my name. A hush spread. Then something heavier movement. Guests, one by one, began standing up. Not in applause. Not in protest. Just leaving her. As the last of them started toward the exit, the side door creaked open. Miss Henderson entered with purpose in her step and a sealed manila envelope in hand. She walked straight to Vera, extended the document. "Temporary injunction," she said coolly. "The judge has reason to believe the will was signed under coercion. Execution of the estate is halted until formal hearing." Vera snatched the envelope but didn't read it. Her fingers curled over the edge like claws. Clark didn't move. He stood to the side, arms crossed, eyes steady. No more hiding. Vera's shoulders dropped, her face a portrait cracking. I walked past her without another glance. The ash urn was on a small wooden pedestal, surrounded by lilies. I bent, placed a single white lily at the base, straightened, took a long breath. Not a dramatic one, just air. Truth didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like finally breathing clean air after months underground. Later, on the steps of the church, the air cooler now, I watched clouds roll in. That's when she approached. An older woman, hair pinned neatly, wearing a soft blue scarf I swore I remembered from years ago. "Rowena?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm Evelyn," she said. "Your mother's oldest friend." She looked at me the way someone does when they're about to tear off a bandage that stayed too long. "There's something your mother never told either of you," she said. Then she paused. "It's about your real father." My pulse didn't spike. Not right away. But I leaned in because something in her voice told me this wasn't just another secret. This was a door, one I didn't even know I'd kept locked. That morning, the porch was quiet. No firecrackers, no speeches. Just the creak of the swing and the slow swirl of lemon in my tea. 1 week had passed since the parade. The air still smelled like sun-warmed concrete and peonies, but something deeper had shifted. This house mine wasn't much. A modest bungalow tucked behind Franklin Elementary. White shutters, chipped mailbox, porch light that flickered when it rained. But it was the first place I ever chose for myself, bought with grant money and some of the inheritance Megan tried to corner. Every morning, I watered the herbs by the window. Let the light find me instead of chasing it. The doorbell rang just after 10. It was Mr. Talbot, my father's friend, who'd commissioned the banner. He handed me a wrapped frame and said, he would have stood up clapping, you know. Inside was a photo, mid-parade, with my face turned up to that banner, joy and disbelief written across it. I couldn't answer him then, just nodded, thanked him, and watched his car disappear down the hill. I held the frame to my chest for a moment longer than I meant to. Later that afternoon, I was reorganizing drawers in the guest room, just to busy my hands when I found a card tucked beneath an old jewelry box. The envelope was yellowed, seal unbroken. My name was written in Dad's crooked block print. It was a birthday card, the kind with a sunset on the front and a quote from Maya Angelou inside. His handwriting wobbled along the margin. Don't let anyone tell you what you're worth, especially not someone who hasn't built anything of their own. I didn't cry because it hurt. I cried because it didn't anymore. I folded the card into the sash I'd made from the parade banner cut and sewn with my own hands and drove to the cemetery. His headstone sat beneath the same oak tree as always, weathered, steadfast. I laid the sash at its base. I got it done, I whispered. Not perfectly, but loud enough. On my way home, I stopped by the farmer's market to grab tomatoes and eggs. And that's where I saw her, Megan. She was in line at the honey stand, face bare, no foundation hiding the fatigue. When she turned and saw me, her posture didn't stiffen. It just sagged. Neither of us moved for a beat. Then, quietly, she walked over. She didn't apologize, didn't make excuses, just said, "Was it worth it?" I looked at her, really looked, and realized how small the battlefield had become. "It wasn't about winning," I said. "It was about not disappearing." She nodded, almost imperceptibly, and then she left. No storm, no final word, just the sound of her sandals scuffing gravel. Back home, I wandered into the workshop. The walls smelled of pine and paint. One of the student paintings, bright yellows and turquoise, barely within the lines, hung crooked above the table. I fixed it, straightening it with both hands. A new cycle of applications was coming in next week for the Future Artists Grant. This time, we had more entries from young girls than ever before. I skimmed through one submission. A 9-year-old from Murfreesboro had drawn a girl with lightning bolts coming from her fingertips, holding a banner that said, "Make them see you." Maybe healing wasn't forgetting. Maybe it was showing up again anyway. The sun dipped low as I returned to the porch. My dog, Clover, nestled beside me. I rocked gently, sweet tea resting on my thigh. Across the street, a mother helped her child tape a drawing onto their mailbox. I squinted. It was a stick figure standing beneath a bright red arch. The name stitched across that banner was mine. I smiled, not for what had been undone, but for what might still be written. I wasn't erased. I was rewritten by my own hand. Sometimes, it's not the parades or the banners that define you. It's the quiet mornings after when no one's watching, and you still choose to stand tall. Looking back, I learned that silence is not always peace, and conflict isn't always war. Sometimes it's just a line you draw, not to hurt anyone, but to protect what they tried to erase. I spent too many years believing I had to stay small to make others comfortable. Now, I know truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to stand long enough. If someone's ever tried to rewrite your worth, just remember, the pen doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you. So tell me, have you ever had to reclaim your place in a world that misjudged you? Do you believe we can move forward without letting go of who we are? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your story in the comments. If this video spoke to your heart, type 1 in the comments or let me know where you're watching from. If you didn't like it, that's okay too. Tell me why. And if you're watching this from your kitchen, porch, or tucked in bed, just know your voice matters here. If this story touched something inside you, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. We've got more stories ahead, ones that heal, hurt, and hold. Thanks for spending your time here with me. I'll see you in the next chapter.